I am Eleanor, 32, and literally last weekend my rep as the family provider? Yeah, it totally backfired. The stability I'd been holding together, working my butt off to keep solid, it blew up into a full-on family meltdown at our so-called family meeting in the cramped dining room of my childhood home. My mother and half-sister, the duo who always seemed to run the show, straight up demanded I keep footing their bills indefinitely, and when I hesitated, the room went dead silent. "You're abandoning us now?" my mother snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass, with my half-sister smirking like she'd won something. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. A quick note, this story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel Guest Stories. Reposting, revoicing, or editing this content without permission constitutes copyright infringement. Thank you for respecting original creative work. Now back to the story. 2 years ago, I came back to this house, jobless and raw from a corporate layoff that shredded my confidence. I'd been a marketing manager, climbing the ladder in a cutthroat firm, only to get downsized when the company restructured. No warning, just a severance check and a good luck. So I packed up my city apartment, sold half my furniture, and drove 300 miles back to this small town, to the house where I grew up, where my mother Linda and my half-sister Tara still lived. I thought it'd be temporary, a few months to regroup, find a new job and get back on my feet. But life had other plans. The house hadn't changed much. Same creaky wooden stairs, same faded floral curtains Mom refused to replace because they're vintage. The air smelled like her lavender candles, but there was a tension I couldn't ignore, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mom greeted me with a tight smile, her eyes scanning my duffel bags like they were an inconvenience. "You'll figure it out, Eleanor," she said, her tone clipped, already turning back to her soap opera. Tara, lounging on the couch with her phone, barely looked up. "Back already?" she said, her voice dripping with something I couldn't quite name. Pity, maybe, or smugness. I swallowed the sting and nodded, dragging my bags to my old bedroom. I didn't expect a welcome party, but I thought there'd be some warmth, some acknowledgement that I was hurting. Instead, I got shrugs and side-eyes. I'd been gone for years, building a life in the city, but it was like they'd forgotten who I was, or worse, they didn't care. I set up my laptop on the wobbly desk in my room, determined to job hunt and get out fast. But then the bills started piling up. Electric, water, internet, even Mom's car payment. She'd mention them casually, like, "Oh, Eleanor, the power's due tomorrow," and I'd pay it, thinking it was temporary. I had savings after all. I could help out. Weeks turned into months, and somehow I was covering everything. Groceries, cable, Tara's phone bill. She'd forgotten to pay it 3 months in a row. I didn't realize how deep I was in until I checked my bank account one night, and saw it dwindling faster than I'd expected. I'd been so focused on keeping the house running, I hadn't noticed I was carrying them all. Mom would pat my arm and say, "You're so good to us," but it felt hollow, like she was checking a box. Tara didn't even bother with thanks, she'd just ask for more, like when she needed new clothes for a job interview she never went to. I started feeling like a ghost in my own home, seen only when they needed something. I'd cook dinner and they'd eat without a word, leaving plates for me to clean. I'd overhear Tara on the phone, laughing about how Eleanor's got it covered. My jaw clenched so hard it ached, but I kept quiet, telling myself I was helping family, that it was temporary. I applied for jobs, dozens, then hundreds, polishing my resume until it gleamed, but the rejections kept coming. The market was brutal, and my confidence was eroding with every "we've decided to move forward with another candidate" email. Last weekend, though, something shifted. We were at the dining table, Mom's idea of a family meeting to sort things out. I'd been up late job hunting again, my eyes burning from screen time, when Mom slid a stack of bills across the table. "You'll handle these, right?" she said, not asking. Tara leaned back, arms crossed, her lips curling like she knew something I didn't. I stared at the papers, electric, gas, internet, all past due. My hands shook as I pushed them back. "I can't keep doing this," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. Mom's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, can't?" she said, like I'd slapped her. Tara laughed, short and sharp. "You live here rent-free, Eleanor. You owe us." "Owe them?" The word hit like a punch. I'd paid every bill for 2 years, kept the lights on, the fridge full, and they thought I owed them? My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. I wouldn't give them that. Instead, I stood, my chair scraping the floor, and walked to my room, their voices trailing after me. Mom's indignant, Tara's mocking. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling's familiar cracks, I felt that spark ignite. I wasn't just going to keep taking this. I was done being their ATM, their invisible servant. Something had to change, and it was going to start with me. I lay in bed that night, the echo of Mom's words, "You owe us," looping in my head like a bad song. My room felt smaller than ever, the walls pressing in with memories I'd tried to bury. Growing up, I was always the odd one out, the kid who tried too hard to fit into a family that seemed to have its own private club. I'd spent years chasing their approval, and looking back, it stung to see how they'd always brushed me off while putting Tara on a pedestal. I remember being 16, bursting with pride when I won the regional debate championship. I'd practiced for weeks, memorizing arguments, pacing in front of my mirror until my voice was sharp and confident. The trophy was small but heavy, polished brass that gleamed under the kitchen light when I brought it home. I set it on the table, grinning, waiting for Mom to say something, anything. She glanced at it, then went back to stirring her coffee. "That's nice, Eleanor," she said, her tone flat, like I'd shown her a grocery receipt. Tara, sprawled on the couch, didn't even look up from her magazine. Later that week, Tara got a C+ on a math test she barely studied for, and Mom threw a whole dinner to celebrate her effort. I sat there, pushing peas around my plate, my trophy forgotten in my room. It wasn't just that one time. When I graduated high school with honors, I got a quick hug and a "good job" from Mom, while Tara's average grades earned her a new phone because she tried her best. I worked 2 jobs through college, scraping by to cover tuition, while Mom sent Tara spending money for clothes and parties, calling it supporting her dreams. I'd call home, hoping to share my small wins, like landing my first marketing internship, and Mom would cut me off to gush about Tara's latest amazing idea, like starting a blog she never followed through on. My successes were invisible, like they didn't count unless they fit the family script. I rolled over in bed, my pillow damp from tears I didn't realize I'd shed. The memories kept coming, sharp and relentless. There was the summer I saved up to take us all to a local fair, thinking it'd be a fun family day. I was 20, home from college, my bank account barely breathing after buying the tickets. We rode the Ferris wheel, ate cotton candy, and for a moment, I thought we were connecting. But then Tara whined about wanting a second round of games, and Mom handed her my last $20 without asking. When I mentioned it later, Mom waved me off. "Don't be selfish, Eleanor. Family shares." My chest tightened at the memory, my hands curling into fists under the blanket. Even when I moved to the city and started my career, the pattern didn't change. I'd visit for holidays, bringing gifts I'd spent weeks choosing. Books for Mom, a scarf for Tara. They'd thank me distractedly, then turn the conversation to Tara's latest drama or Mom's complaints about the neighbors. My promotion to marketing manager? Barely a nod. Tara's brief stint as a barista? A full-on family saga, with Mom calling her so brave for working part-time. I'd smile, nod, swallow the hurt, telling myself it didn't matter. But it did. It always did. Now back in this house, nothing had changed. I'd been paying their bills for 2 years, keeping their lives afloat while they treated me like a burden. I sat up, my heart racing as the pieces clicked together. Every time I tried to shine, they dimmed me. Every time I gave, they took without a second thought. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through my bank statements, the numbers glaring back at me. Thousands gone on their utilities, their groceries, their Wi-Fi. My savings, my safety net, drained to keep them comfortable while they smirked and called me selfish. I thought about confronting them right then, storming downstairs to demand answers. But my hands were shaking, and I knew I'd just get more of their dismissals, their gaslighting. Instead, I opened my laptop, the screen's glow harsh in the dark. I started digging through my emails, looking for job leads I'd saved. There was one from a week ago, a marketing firm in the city, interested in my resume, offering an interview. My pulse quickened. It was a chance, a real one. But something else caught my eye, a forwarded message from Tara's email, one I hadn't noticed before. My stomach dropped as I read it, a reply to that same firm, signed with my name, declining the interview. The words blurred. "Thank you, but I'm not interested at this time." Tara had access to my old email account from when I set up her phone years ago. She must have seen the offer and sabotaged it. My breath caught, a mix of rage and betrayal burning in my chest. I clicked through more emails, finding another from Mom to the same firm, clarifying that I wasn't a good fit. They'd worked together to keep me here, trapped, paying their way. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, itching to type a confrontation, but I stopped. Not yet. I needed a plan, something sharper than their betrayal. I closed the laptop, my mind racing, that spark from earlier now a full-blown fire. They thought they could control me, but they were about to learn who I really was. The realization hit me like a freight train. I'd been bankrolling my family's entire life for 2 years, and they didn't even blink. I sat there in the dark, my laptop still warm on my lap, the glow of that sabotaged email burning in my mind. My fingers twitched, wanting to slam the screen shut, but instead I opened my banking app again, scrolling through the transactions with a kind of grim clarity. Every month, like clockwork. Electric, water, gas, internet, Mom's car payment, Tara's phone, even their streaming subscriptions. Thousands of dollars siphoned from my savings, while they treated me like an inconvenience. I'd been so caught up in keeping the house running, I hadn't seen it for what it was. A trap. I leaned back against the headboard, my breath uneven, as the weight of it settled in. It wasn't just about the money, it was the way they'd let me carry their world without a single thank you, the way they'd nod and move on like it was my job. I remembered the first month back, when Mom handed me the electric bill with a sigh, saying, "You're here now, Eleanor, might as well help out." I'd nodded, thinking it was temporary, a way to contribute while I got back on my feet. But then came the water bill, the groceries, the Wi-Fi they couldn't live without. I'd set up automatic payments to make it easier, not realizing I was signing up for a role I never auditioned for. My eyes drifted to the desk where a stack of unopened mail sat. Bills, notices, all in my name because I'd taken over the accounts to simplify things. I grabbed the pile, flipping through envelopes. Each one felt heavier than the last, a paper trail of my invisible labor. I found a late notice for the gas bill, stamped with a red past due warning. My stomach twisted. I'd paid it last week, hadn't I? I checked my bank app again, and there it was, a double payment, because Mom had forgotten to tell me she'd already asked for an extension. I'd been so busy job hunting, I hadn't noticed the overlap. My savings weren't just dwindling, they were hemorrhaging. I stood, pacing the small room, my bare feet cold on the hardwood. The house was quiet, but I could still hear Tara's laugh from earlier, sharp and mocking, when she said, "I owed them." Owed them what? The life I'd put on hold to keep their lights on? The career I'd lost because I was too busy playing their ATM? I stopped by the window, staring out at the dark street, my reflection faint in the glass. I looked tired, my eyes shadowed, my shoulders slumped. But inside Ebony, something was shifting, something fierce. I wasn't just angry, I was awake. I sat back down, pulling up my bank statements again, this time with purpose. I tallied every payment, every cent I'd poured into this house. The numbers made my head spin. Over $30,000 in 2 years, nearly all my savings from my marketing job. I'd told myself I was helping family, that it was temporary, but the truth was uglier. They'd leaned into my generosity, knowing I wouldn't say no. Mom's vague promises of "we'll pay you back" had never materialized. Tara's "I'll get a job soon" was just noise. I'd been their safety net, and they'd cut holes in it without a second thought. My hands shook as I clicked through the automatic payment settings. Every account was tied to my card. Electric, water, internet, even Tara's phone. I could stop it all with a few clicks, but I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. What would happen if I did? Mom would panic, Tara would scream, and I'd be the villain. But then I thought of that email, the one Tara sent to sabotage my job offer, and Mom's follow-up, sealing the deal. They didn't just take my money, they'd tried to trap me here, to keep me small and useful. My hesitation vanished. I didn't click anything yet, but the idea took root, sharp and certain. I leaned back, my mind racing. I needed to be smart about this, not just react. I opened a new tab, pulling up my email again, and drafted a message to the marketing firm. My fingers flew over the keys, explaining the mix-up, apologizing for the confusion, and asking if the position was still open. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, my heart pounding. It was a long shot, but it was something. I wasn't going to let their betrayal define me anymore. I closed my laptop and stood, my reflection in the window looking different now. Taller, maybe, or just less defeated. Downstairs, I could hear the TV blaring, Mom and Tara probably watching some reality show, oblivious to the storm brewing in my head. They thought they had me figured out, the dutiful daughter who'd keep paying their way. But I was done being invisible. I didn't know exactly what I'd do next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't their servant anymore. That spark from last night was now a flame, and it was about to burn through everything they thought they knew about me. The email I sent to the marketing firm felt like a lifeline, a fragile thread tying me to a future I could barely imagine anymore. I woke up the next morning with my laptop still on my bed, the screen dark but the weight of last night's discovery heavy in my chest. My mother and Tara had sabotaged my job offer, deliberately cutting me off from a way out. I couldn't unsee those emails. Tara's smug, not interested reply in my name, Mom's calculated follow-up claiming I wasn't a good fit. My hands clenched the edge of my blanket, nails digging into the fabric as I replayed every word. They didn't just want me to stay, they wanted me trapped, tethered to their bills, their lives, their control. I got up, my movements slow, deliberate, like I was carrying something explosive. The house was quiet, Mom probably still asleep, Tara likely sprawled on the couch with her phone. I slipped into the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror. My eyes were bloodshot from staying up too late, but there was a sharpness in them, a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious, and that fury was fuel. Downstairs I made coffee, the gurgle of the machine the only sound in the kitchen. I opened my laptop again, checking for a reply from the marketing firm. Nothing yet. My stomach knotted, but I pushed it down, focusing on the plan forming in my head. I needed proof, something concrete to confront them with. I went back to my email, digging through the sent folder on Tara's account. She'd never changed the password from when I set it up years ago. There it was, the fake decline to the job offer, timestamped 2 weeks ago. I forwarded it to myself, then found Mom's email to the firm, her words clinical, like she was doing them a favor by warning them about me. I saved that too, my fingers trembling not with fear but with purpose. I leaned back, sipping the bitter coffee, my mind racing. The job was with a mid-sized firm in the city, a step up from my old role with a salary that could have rebuilt my savings in a year. They'd reached out after seeing my portfolio online, impressed by a campaign I'd run for a nonprofit. I'd been thrilled, drafting a response late at night, only to wake up to no reply and assume they'd ghosted me. Now I knew why. Tara must have seen the email notification on my phone, she was always borrowing it to check something quick, and decided to kill my chance. Mom's follow-up was the final nail, making sure the firm wouldn't reconsider. The betrayal burned, sharp and deep, like a blade twisting in my gut. I stood, pacing the kitchen, my bare feet slapping the linoleum. I wanted to scream, to storm upstairs and shake them awake, demand answers. But I knew how that'd go. Mom's fake tears? Tara's eye rolls, both of them twisting it to make me the bad guy. I needed to be smarter, to hit them where it hurt. My eyes landed on the stack of bills on the counter, the ones I'd pushed back at Mom last night. I grabbed them, flipping through. Electric, gas, internet, all in my name, all tied to my bank account. I'd set up those automatic payments to help out, never thinking I'd be doing it for 2 years. My jaw tightened as I realized how easy I'd made it. I opened my banking app, the numbers staring back at me. $2,347 left in savings, a fraction of what I'd had when I moved back. Every payment was listed, a digital leash I'd tied myself to. I hovered over the cancel button for the electric bill, my thumb itching to press it. Not yet, I thought. I needed to confront them first, to see their faces when I laid out their betrayal. I wanted them to know I wasn't their doormat anymore. The front door creaked open and Tara shuffled in, her hair messy, her phone glued to her hand. "Morning," she mumbled, not looking at me as she grabbed a mug. I watched her, my pulse pounding, noticing the way she avoided my eyes, like she knew she'd done something wrong. Sleep well? I asked, my voice steady but laced with something she didn't catch. She shrugged, pouring coffee. Yeah, whatever. I bit the inside of my cheek, holding back the urge to call her out right there. Instead, I closed my laptop, the emails safely saved, and stood. We need to talk tonight, I said, my tone calm but firm. She glanced up, her brow furrowing, but said nothing, just nodded and went back to her phone. I spent the day preparing, printing the emails, organizing the bills into a neat stack. My hands were steady now, my anger a quiet, focused thing. I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd lay out their sabotage, how I'd refuse to let them twist it. By evening, when Mom called us for dinner, I was ready. I slipped the papers into a folder, my heart a drumbeat in my chest. This wasn't just about the money or the job, it was about reclaiming my life. As I headed to the dining room, the folder tucked under my arm, I felt that flame inside me roar. They thought they could keep me small, but tonight, they'd see who I really was. The dining room smelled of Mom's lasagna, the one dish she'd always made to pretend we were a normal family, but the air was thick with tension as I sat down. The table was set for 3, the same chipped plates we'd used since I was a kid, the same uneven chairs that creaked under my weight. Mom was already dishing out portions, her movements brisk, like she was trying to outrun the silence from last night's family meeting. Tara slouched across from me, scrolling her phone, her fork dangling lazily in her hand. I set my folder of evidence, those damning emails and bills, on the table beside my plate, its presence like a loaded gun no one else could see. Eleanor, you're quiet tonight, Mom said, her voice too bright like she was auditioning for a cheerful mom in a sitcom. She slid a slice of lasagna onto my plate, her eyes flicking to the folder but not lingering. Everything okay? The question felt like a trap, her smile tight, like she was daring me to bring up last night's argument about the bills. I nodded, my lips pressed into a thin line and took a bite, the cheese burning my tongue. I didn't taste it. My pulse was too loud, my focus locked on the folder, on the moment I'd been rehearsing all day. Tara looked up from her phone, her eyes narrowing as she caught me staring. What's with the folder, Eleanor? Got some big secret? Her tone was mocking, a half laugh that made my skin crawl. She leaned forward, her elbow knocking her water glass, which wobbled but didn't spill. I wanted to snap back, to throw the emails in her face right then, but I forced myself to stay calm, my hands resting on my lap, fingers digging into my thighs. Just some paperwork, I said, my voice even, though my heart was hammering. She rolled her eyes and went back to her phone, muttering something about me being so serious. Mom chimed in, her voice still falsely sweet. You know, Eleanor, we appreciate you helping out around here, but you don't have to make everything so dramatic. She waved her hand, dismissing the folder, dismissing me. The word dramatic landed like a slap, and I felt my jaw tighten, my teeth grinding together. Helping out? I'd been paying every bill for 2 years, keeping their lights on, their Netflix streaming, while they treated me like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. I took a slow breath, my fingers brushing the edge of the folder, grounding myself. Not yet, I thought. Let them dig their hole deeper. The dinner dragged on, each comment a needle under my skin. Mom went on about Tara's potential. How she was thinking about applying for a job at a boutique downtown, as if Tara's vague plans were some grand achievement. She's got such a good eye for fashion, Mom said, beaming at Tara, who smirked and nodded like she deserved the praise. I pushed my lasagna around my plate, my appetite gone, remembering all the times I'd come home with real accomplishments, a promotion, a successful campaign, only to get a nod and a change of subject. Now, here they were, gushing over Tara's non-existent career while I sat there, the invisible bankroll. Then came the backhanded compliments, sharp and calculated. You're so good at managing things, Eleanor, Mom said, her tone syrupy. Always so responsible. Not everyone can just stay home and handle bills like you do. Tara snorted, not even trying to hide it. Yeah, you're like our personal accountant, she said, her eyes glinting with something cruel. Must be nice to have no real job to worry about. My fork froze halfway to my mouth, the metal cold against my fingers. No real job? I'd lost my career, poured my savings into their lives, and she had the nerve to call me jobless? My blood boiled, but I kept my face neutral, my eyes on my plate, counting the ridges in the pasta to keep from exploding. I glanced at the folder, its edges worn from how many times I'd gripped it today. Inside were the emails, the proof of their betrayal, and the bills that showed exactly how much I'd carried them. I wanted to slam it open, to watch their faces crumple as I read out Tara's fake email and Mom's follow-up. But I held back. The timing wasn't right, not yet. I needed them to feel comfortable, to keep talking, to reveal just how little they thought of me. So I nodded, forced a small smile, and said, "Yeah, I guess I'm good at keeping things together." Tara laughed again, short and sharp, and Mom patted my hand like I was a child who'd done her chores. As we cleared the plates, Mom's voice turned serious. "Eleanor, we need to talk about the bills again. They're piling up and we can't do this without you." Her eyes were on me now, expectant, like it was my duty to nod and agree. Tara leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me with that same smirk. My heart pounded, the folder burning a hole in my thoughts. This was it, the moment was coming. I set my plate in the sink, my hands steady despite the fire in my chest, and turned to face them. "We'll talk," I said, my voice low, final. "After dinner." Their eyes flickered with something, confusion maybe or unease, but they didn't push. I walked back to the table, my fingers brushing the folder again, and felt that flame inside me roar louder than ever. The dishes were stacked in the sink, the clatter of plates fading as I turned to face Mom and Tara in the dining room. The air felt heavier now, the lasagna's warmth replaced by a chill that had nothing to do with the open window. I clutched the folder, its edges digging into my palms, and sat back down at the table. Mom was wiping her hands on a dish towel, her smile gone, her eyes wary. Tara leaned back in her chair, one leg crossed over the other, her phone face down but still within reach, like she was ready to bolt. I didn't give them a chance to steer the conversation. "We need to talk about those emails," I said, my voice steady, cutting through the silence like a knife. Mom's hands froze on the towel, her knuckles whitening. "Emails?" she said, her tone too casual, like she was trying to play dumb. Tara's eyes flicked to Mom, then back to me, her smirk faltering for a split second. I opened the folder, pulling out the printed emails, the paper crinkling in my grip. "These," I said, sliding the first one across the table. It was Tara's fake reply to the marketing firm, declining the job offer in my name. I watched her face as she scanned it, her lips parting slightly, her fingers twitching like she wanted to snatch it away. "And this," I added, placing Mom's email beside it, the one where she'd clarified I wasn't a good fit. The room went still, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. "What is this, Eleanor?" Mom asked, her voice sharp now, her eyes darting between the papers and me. She didn't touch them, just stared like they might bite. Tara shifted in her seat, her foot tapping the floor, a nervous rhythm that betrayed her cool exterior. "You went through my email?" she snapped, her voice rising, but there was a crack in it, a hint of panic. I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table, anchoring myself. "You used my email to sabotage a job offer, Tara, and you," I turned to Mom, my gaze unflinching, "you backed her up. You both made sure I'd stay here, stuck, paying your bills." Mom's face flushed, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "That's not... Eleanor, you're twisting this," she stammered, her hands twisting the towel into knots. "We were protecting you. That job wasn't right for you. You were already so stressed." Her words were flimsy, a desperate scramble to rewrite the story. Tara jumped in, her voice louder, defensive. "Yeah, you think you're so perfect, but you'd have bombed that job, Eleanor. We did you a favor." Her eyes were hard, but her fingers were picking at the edge of her sleeve, unraveling a thread, betraying her nerves. "A favor?" I repeated, my voice low, dangerous. I stood, pushing my chair back, the scrape loud against the floor. "I've paid every bill in this house for 2 years. Electric, water, your car, your phone, Tara, over $30,000. And you think you did me a favor by trapping me here?" I spread the bills from the folder across the table, each one a piece of evidence. A receipt for my stolen life. Mom's eyes widened, her hands dropping the towel, but she didn't speak. Tara's foot stopped tapping, her face paling as she stared at the papers. "You needed me," I said, my voice shaking now, not with fear but with the weight of everything I'd held back. "You needed my money, my time, my silence, and when I got a chance to leave, to rebuild my life, you both made sure I couldn't. You lied, you schemed, and you didn't even blink." I pointed at the emails, my finger jabbing the air. This is proof. You can't gaslight me out of this one. Tara's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked at Mom like she was waiting for a cue, but Mom just sat there, her hands trembling, her eyes fixed on the table. I took a step back, my chest heaving, the fire inside me burning hotter than ever. I trusted you, I said, my voice breaking just a little. I came back here thinking we were family, thinking I could count on you, but you used me. You saw me struggling and instead of helping, you made sure I'd stay down. Mom finally looked up, her eyes wet, but I didn't soften. Eleanor, we didn't mean, she started, but I cut her off. Don't lie to me again, you meant every word in those emails. Tara stood, her chair scraping back, her face twisted with anger. You're so dramatic, Eleanor. You think you're the only one with problems? We needed you here. Her voice cracked, and for a moment I saw something raw in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or guilt. But it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by that familiar smirk. You can't just walk away. What are we supposed to do without you? I stared at her, then at Mom, who was still silent, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. I picked up the folder, tucking it under my arm, and turned toward the stairs. You'll figure it out, I said, my voice cold, final, because I'm done. As I climbed the stairs, my heart pounded, not with doubt but with a strange, fierce relief. I'd said it, I'd laid it all bare. Their betrayal was out in the open and they couldn't hide from it anymore. I reached my room, closed the door, and leaned against it, my breath ragged. The folder was still in my hand, a weight I was ready to let go of. But not yet. There was one more step, one final move to make sure they understood I wasn't coming back to their game. I shut my bedroom door, the click of the latch loud in the silence, my heart still racing from the confrontation downstairs. The folder of emails and bills was still tucked under my arm, but my focus shifted to my laptop on the desk, its screen dark but calling to me like a lifeline. I'd laid out their betrayal, Mom's stammering excuses, Tara's defensive snarls, but words weren't enough. They'd taken my money, my trust, my future, and I wasn't going to let them keep it. I sat down, opened my laptop, and pulled up my banking app, the numbers glaring back at me. $2,347 left in savings, a shadow of what I'd had 2 years ago. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, steady now, as I prepared to cut the cord. I started with the electric bill, the one I'd paid faithfully every month, even when they forgot to tell me about late fees. I clicked into the account, my cursor lingering on the Cancel Automatic Payment button. My thumb twitched, remembering Mom's fake tears, Tara's smirk as she called me dramatic. I pressed the button, confirming the cancellation with a cold satisfaction. The screen updated, payment stopped. I moved to the water bill, then the gas, then the internet. Each click a small act of rebellion, undoing the leash I'd let them tie around me. Tara's phone was last, the one she used to scroll endlessly while I paid for her data. I canceled that too, my lips curling into a grim smile as I imagined her confusion when the service cut off. Each cancellation felt like shedding a weight, like peeling off layers of a life I hadn't chosen. I leaned back in my chair, my hands resting on the desk, the wood cool under my palms. The house was quiet, but I could picture Mom and Tara downstairs, probably whispering about how to handle me, how to guilt me back into line. They had no idea what I'd just done. I opened my email, drafting a quick message to the utility companies, transferring the accounts back to Mom's name. I kept it professional, no trace of the anger burning in my chest. Please update the account holder to Linda Thompson, effective immediately. I hit send, then closed my laptop, the finality of it sinking in. I stood, my eyes scanning the room, my childhood bed, the faded posters, the desk where I'd spent countless nights job hunting. This wasn't my home anymore, it was a cage I'd let myself get locked in. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, my hands moving on autopilot as I started packing. Clothes, laptop, charger, a few books. Only what I could carry. My fingers brushed the photo frame on my nightstand, a picture of me, Mom, and Tara from years ago, smiling at a picnic. I hesitated, my throat tightening, then left it there. That family didn't exist anymore, maybe never had. I zipped the bag, my movements quick but deliberate, like I was racing against their inevitable backlash. I could already hear Tara's voice in my head whining, "You can't do this to us." But I could, and I had. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands clasped, my nails digging into my palms as I steadied myself. I wasn't running away. I was choosing myself, maybe for the first time. My phone buzzed, a notification from the marketing firm I'd emailed yesterday. My heart skipped as I opened it. We'd like to discuss the position further. Can you meet tomorrow? I stared at the words, a spark of hope flickering through the anger. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a chance. I heard footsteps on the stairs, heavy and hurried. Tara, probably, coming to demand answers. The door swung open without a knock, and there she was, her face flushed, her eyes wild. "What the hell, Eleanor?" she snapped, her voice shaking. "Mom just got a call from the electric company. They said the account's in her name now?" I stood, meeting her gaze, my voice calm but razor sharp. "That's right, I'm done paying for you." Her mouth dropped open, her hands balling into fists. "You can't just, we need that. You live here too." I stepped closer, my bag slung over my shoulder, the folder in my hand. "Not anymore," I said, brushing past her toward the stairs. Mom was at the bottom, her face pale, used her hands clutching her phone. "Eleanor, what's going on?" she asked, her voice high, panicked. I didn't stop, just kept walking toward the front door. "I canceled the payments," I said, not looking back. "You're on your own now." Tara's voice followed me, shrill and desperate. "You're screwing us over." I paused at the door, my hand on the knob, and turned to face them. "No," I said, my voice steady, final. "You screwed yourselves." I stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin, and pulled the door shut behind me. The click felt like freedom, but I knew the real storm was coming. The night air hit my face as I stepped onto the porch, my duffel bag heavy on my shoulder, the folder of evidence tucked under my arm. Behind me, the front door rattled as Tara yanked it open, her voice slicing through the quiet. "Eleanor, get back here! You can't just leave us like this." Her words were a mix of fury and panic, her footsteps crunching on the gravel as she followed me. I kept walking toward my car, my keys jingling in my hand, my heart pounding but my resolve ironclad. Mom's voice joined in, shrill from the doorway. "Eleanor, this is cruel. We're your family." I didn't turn around. Cruel? They'd sabotaged my job, drained my savings, and called it my duty. I was done. I tossed my bag into the back seat, the thud loud in the still night. Tara caught up, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You think you're so high and mighty, huh?" she spat, her face inches from mine, her breath hot with anger. "You cut off the bills and now what? You're just gonna let us lose everything?" Her eyes were wide, wild, but I saw the fear in them, the cracks in her usual smugness. I pulled my arm free, stepping back, my voice low but steady. "You lost everything when you decided to lie to me, Tara. You and Mom made your choice." Mom hurried down the steps, her hands wringing, her face crumpled with something that looked like tears but felt rehearsed. "Eleanor, please," she said, her voice shaking, "we didn't mean to hurt you. We needed you here. You're so good at handling things." Her words were a knife, twisting the same old narrative, that I was useful, not valued. I opened my car door, my fingers gripping the handle hard enough to ache. "You needed my money," I said, turning to face her. "Not me. You made that clear when you sabotaged my job." Tara's face twisted, her hands balling into fists. "You're exaggerating! It was one email!" I pulled the folder from under my arm, flipping it open to the printed emails, holding them up so the porch light caught the words. "One email from you," I said, pointing at Tara, "and one from you." I nodded at Mom. "To make sure I'd stay stuck here, paying your way." Mom's mouth opened but no words came out. Tara's eyes darted to the papers, her jaw tightening, but she didn't deny it. The silence was louder than their protests, a confession in itself. I tossed the folder onto the ground, the papers scattering across the gravel. "Keep them," I said. "Maybe they'll remind you what you did." Tara lunged for the papers, scrambling to pick them up, her hands shaking. Mom just stood there, her face pale, her hands clutching her sweater like it could hold her together. "Eleanor," she whispered, "where are you going? You can't just leave." I slid into the driver's seat, my hand steady on the wheel. "I'm gonna live my life," I said, my voice calm, final. "You figure out yours." I started the car, the engine rumbling to life, and pulled out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, I saw Tara standing in the gravel, clutching the papers, her face a mix of rage and disbelief. Mom was behind her, one hand over her mouth, the other still gripping her sweater. The porch light cast long shadows, making them look smaller, frailer than I'd ever seen them. For a moment, my chest tightened, a flicker of guilt trying to creep in. They were my family after all. But then I remembered the emails, the bills, the years of being invisible unless I was useful. The guilt burned away, replaced by that fire I'd felt since last night. I drove to a motel on the edge of town, the neon sign flickering as I checked in. The room was small, the bed lumpy, but it felt like a palace compared to that house. I dropped my bag on the floor, my phone buzzing with a text from Tara. "You'll regret this." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email, seeing a new message from the marketing firm, confirming a meeting tomorrow morning. My heart lifted just a fraction, but enough to keep me going. I lay on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, the weight of their panic fading with every breath. They'd built their lives on my back, but now they'd have to stand on their own. And me? I was just getting started. The motel room smelled faintly of bleach and stale coffee, but it was mine, a quiet space where I could finally breathe. I sat on the edge of the bed, my duffel bag unzipped at my feet, my phone silent for the first time in hours. No texts from Tara, no calls from Mom, just the hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of cars on the highway. I'd driven away from their panic last night, their voices still echoing in my head. Tara's accusations, Mom's fake tears. But here, in this small room, I felt something new. Freedom. Fragile but real. I wasn't ready to celebrate, not with the meeting at the marketing firm looming tomorrow, but I needed something to anchor me. That's when I called Sarah. Sarah was my old college roommate, the kind of friend who'd show up with pizza and a bad movie when life got rough. We'd stayed close, even after I moved back home, though I'd been too buried in family drama to see her much. I dialed her number, my thumb hesitating over the call button, wondering if it was too late to lean on someone. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm and familiar. "Eleanor? Oh my God, it's been forever, you okay?" I exhaled, the knot in my chest loosening just hearing her. "Not really," I said, my voice softer than I meant. "Can I come over?" An hour later I was at Sarah's apartment, a cozy place filled with plants and mismatched furniture. She opened the door, her curly hair pulled into a messy bun, her smile wide but worried. "Get in here," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like lavender and home. I dropped my bag by the couch, my shoulders sagging as the weight of the last 24 hours hit me. We sat at her tiny kitchen table, a bottle of wine between us, and I told her everything. The bills, the sabotaged job offer, the confrontation, the cancelled payments. Her eyes widened, her fingers tightening around her glass as I described the emails. "They did what?" she said, her voice sharp with disbelief. "Eleanor, that's not just messed up, that's evil." I nodded, sipping the wine, its warmth spreading through me. Sarah's outrage felt like a balm, a reminder that not everyone saw me as a means to an end. She leaned forward, her hands gesturing wildly. "You've been carrying them for years and they pull this? No, you're done with that nonsense." She stood, grabbing a plate of cookies from the counter, sliding them toward me. "Eat. You look like you haven't slept in a week." I managed a small laugh, grabbing a cookie, the chocolate melting on my tongue. It was the first thing I'd tasted all day. We talked for hours, the conversation shifting from my family's betrayal to memories of college, late-night study sessions, sneaking into bars with fake IDs, laughing until we couldn't breathe. Sarah's apartment was the opposite of Mom's house. No tension, no hidden agendas. Her boyfriend Jake came home halfway through, his lanky frame filling the doorway. "Eleanor, long time," he said, dropping his keys on the counter. When Sarah filled him in, his jaw dropped. "They sabotaged your job? That's low." He sat with us, cracking open a beer, his quiet support steadying me further. Sitting there, surrounded by their warmth, I felt the contrast like a physical thing. Mom and Tara had treated me like a burden, a tool to be used, while Sarah and Jake saw me, really saw me. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You're not alone, okay? You've got us. Stay here as long as you need." My throat tightened, not with pain but with gratitude. I nodded, unable to speak, my fingers curling around hers. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. As the night wound down, Sarah set up the couch with a blanket and pillow, insisting I crash there instead of the motel. I lay down, the fabric soft against my cheek, my phone buzzing with a new email from the marketing firm, a detailed agenda for tomorrow's meeting. My heart lifted, a flicker of hope cutting through the exhaustion. I closed my eyes, Sarah's laughter from earlier echoing in my mind, a reminder of what real connection felt like. Mom and Tara's world was crumbling, but mine was just beginning to rebuild, and I had people who'd catch me if I fell. I woke up on Sarah's couch, the morning light filtering through her mismatched curtains, casting soft shadows on the blanket draped over me. My phone was on the coffee table, the screen showing a missed call from Mom and 2 texts from Tara, both variations of "we need to talk." I ignored them, my thumb swiping them away as I sat up, my back stiff from the lumpy cushions. Last night's warmth from Sarah and Jake lingered in my chest, but the reality of what I'd done, cutting off the bills, walking out, settled like a stone. I wasn't going back, but I needed to set rules, a fortress of boundaries to keep Mom and Tara from dragging me back into their chaos. Today's meeting with the marketing firm was my focus, but I couldn't move forward without closing the door on their manipulation. Sarah was already in the kitchen, the smell of coffee pulling me to my feet. "Morning, hero," she said, sliding a mug toward me, her grin softening the weight of the day. I thanked her, my fingers wrapping around the warm ceramic, and sat at the table, pulling out my phone. I needed to draft a message to Mom and Tara, something clear, unyielding that would set the terms for any future contact. My hands shook slightly, not from fear but from the sheer force of what I was about to do. I opened a notes app and started typing. My words deliberate, each one a brick in the wall I was building. The message was simple but firm. "I'm not coming back. You betrayed my trust and I won't be your financial crutch anymore. If you want to talk, it's on my terms. No guilt, no demands, no lies. I'll help with advice, not money, and only if you respect my boundaries." I read it over, my jaw tight, imagining Mom's teary protests, Tara's indignant scoff. I added one more line: "Acknowledge what you did, or we're done." I sent it to both of them, my thumb pressing the screen with a finality that felt like locking a gate. I leaned back, exhaling, the coffee bitter on my tongue. Sarah glanced over from the stove where she was flipping pancakes. "You okay?" she asked, her eyes sharp like she could see the storm in my head. I nodded, showing her the message. She read it, her lips pursing, then gave a low whistle. "Damn, Eleanor, that's ice cold and perfect." I managed a small smile, my shoulders loosening. "It's what they deserve," I said, my voice steady but quiet. She nodded, sliding a plate of pancakes toward me. "Eat. You've got a big day." The meeting with the marketing firm was in 3 hours, and I needed to prepare, but my mind kept drifting to Mom and Tara. Would they reply? Would they try to guilt me again? My phone buzzed and my heart jumped, but it was just a confirmation email from the firm, with details about the office address. I pushed thoughts of my family aside, focusing on the task at hand. I showered, borrowed one of Sarah's blazers, mine were still at the house, and practiced my pitch in the bathroom mirror, my reflection looking sharper, more determined than it had in years. As I got ready, my phone buzzed again, this time a text from Mom. "Eleanor, we're sorry, can we talk?" No acknowledgement of the emails, no real apology, just the same vague plea. Tara's text followed. "You're being unfair, we're struggling now." I stared at the words, my fingers hovering over the reply button. But I didn't respond. They hadn't met my terms, hadn't owned their betrayal. I set the phone face down, my resolve hardening. They'd have to do better than that. I left for the meeting, Sarah's hug and "you've got this" echoing in my ears. Driving through the city, I felt the weight of my new boundaries settling into place. I wasn't closing the door on them forever, but I was done letting them walk all over me. If they wanted me in their lives, they'd have to respect me. Not my wallet, not my utility, but me. As I parked near the firm's office, my phone stayed silent, and I took it as a sign. This was my moment, my chance to rebuild, and no one, not Mom, not Tara, was going to pull me back. The marketing firm's office was all glass and sharp lines, a world away from the cramped, lavender-scented house I'd left behind. I stepped out of the meeting, my heart still racing from the hour-long discussion, my hands clutching a folder with the firm's logo and a tentative job offer. They'd been impressed with my portfolio, my ideas for their upcoming campaign, and my resilience, as the hiring manager put it. It wasn't a done deal, there'd be a second interview next week, but it was a start, a real chance to reclaim my life. As I walked to my car, the city buzzing around me, I felt a surge of something I hadn't in years. Pride. Not for the offer, not yet, but for standing up, for walking away from Mom and Tara's trap and building something new. I drove back to Sarah's apartment, the folder on the passenger seat like a trophy. My phone had stayed silent, no more texts from Mom or Tara since their weak apologies this morning. I'd meant what I said in my message, no respect, no contact. But the quiet didn't feel empty, it felt like space, room to breathe and rebuild. I parked, grabbed the folder, and headed inside, where Sarah was waiting with a grin and a, "So spill." I told her everything. The firm's sleek office, the manager's nod when I pitched a social media strategy, the way I'd felt my old confidence flicker back to life. She whooped, pulling me into a hug, her enthusiasm infectious. That evening, I sat at Sarah's kitchen table, my laptop open, the job offer's details glowing on the screen. But my mind wandered to what I wanted to do with this chance, not just for me but beyond me. I'd spent years pouring my energy into Mom and Tara, keeping their world afloat. Now I wanted to create something that mattered, something that wasn't about fixing their messes. I started researching local nonprofits, ones focused on financial literacy and women's empowerment. I'd been through too much not to share what I'd learned: how to spot manipulation, how to set boundaries, how to rebuild after being torn down. I drafted an email to a nonprofit I'd worked with years ago, offering to volunteer my marketing skills. My fingers flew over the keys, outlining a workshop idea: breaking free, financial independence and self-worth. It wasn't just about budgets, it was about recognizing your value, something I'd lost sight of until now. I included my story, not the raw, painful details, but enough to show I understood. I hit send, my chest light with purpose. This wasn't about revenge. It was about turning my pain into something useful, something that could help others avoid the trap I'd fallen into. Sarah peeked over my shoulder, reading the email draft I'd saved. "Eleanor, this is incredible," she said, her voice soft but serious. "You're taking all this crap they put you through and making it mean something." I nodded, my throat tight, not with sadness but with a quiet strength. I thought about my family name, Thompson, tainted by Mom and Tara's betrayal, their dependence on me as their crutch. I wasn't erasing it, I was redefining it. Eleanor Thompson wasn't the doormat they'd counted on. She was someone who built, who created, who stood firm. Later I checked my phone, half expecting another plea from Mom or Tara. Nothing. Part of me wondered if they were scrambling, facing overdue notices, maybe even arguing with each other. But I didn't linger on it. Their mess was theirs now. I opened a new document, jotting down ideas for the workshop, practical tips on budgeting, recognizing financial abuse, setting boundaries. My pen scratched the paper, the sound grounding me. I wasn't just rebuilding my life, I was creating a legacy, one that didn't depend on their approval or their demands. As I closed my laptop, Sarah handed me a glass of wine, her eyes warm. "You're kind of a badass, you know that?" she said, clinking her glass against mine. I laughed, the sound surprising me. For the first time in years I felt like I was living my name, not theirs. The road ahead wasn't clear, the job wasn't guaranteed, the nonprofit might not reply, but I was moving forward, building something real, something mine. I sat on the edge of Sarah's couch, the morning light spilling through her curtains, a warm glow that felt like a quiet promise. My laptop was open on the coffee table, the nonprofit's response glowing on the screen. They loved my workshop idea and wanted to meet next week to plan it. The folder from the marketing firm sat beside it, the job offer's details crisp and real, a second interview scheduled for tomorrow. My duffel bag was still unzipped by the door, a reminder of the life I'd left behind just days ago. The weight of Mom and Tara's betrayal lingered, but it was softer now, like a bruise starting to fade. I'd spent years chasing their approval, measuring my worth by their nods or their silence, but sitting here, surrounded by Sarah's plants and the faint smell of last night's wine, I felt something new, peace, not from them, but from me. I leaned back, my hands resting on my knees, my fingers tracing the frayed hem of my jeans. I thought about the last 2 years, the way I'd poured myself into their lives. Every bill paid, every meal cooked, every sacrifice made without a second thought. I'd told myself it was love, duty, family, but it was fear. Fear of losing them, of being alone, of not being enough. That fear had kept me tethered, my savings draining, my dreams shrinking, while Mom and Tara took and took. I saw it clearly now, not with anger but with a calm that settled deep in my bones. Their betrayal, the emails, the lies hadn't broken me, it had freed me. I stood, stretching, my back cracking from the night on the couch. Sarah was at work, but she'd left a note on the fridge. "You're killing it, E. Breakfast in the microwave." I smiled, my chest warm, and opened the microwave to find a plate of pancakes, slightly soggy but made with care. I ate standing at the counter, the sweetness grounding me. Each bite a reminder of the people who saw me for me, not for what I could give. Sarah and Jake had given me a safe place to land, a contrast to the house where I'd been invisible unless I was useful. That contrast was my anchor now, proof that I could build a life surrounded by people who valued me. My phone buzzed, a new text from Mom. "Eleanor, we're sorry, please call." Tara's message followed. "This isn't fair. Talk to us." I set the phone down, my hand steady, the urge to reply gone. They still hadn't acknowledged the emails, hadn't owned their betrayal, just kept reaching for me, like I was still their lifeline. I pictured them in that house, the bills piling up, the lights flickering with overdue notices. Part of me wanted to feel guilty, to rush back and fix it, but I pushed it down. Their mess wasn't mine anymore. I'd given them a chance, clear terms, boundaries they could meet if they chose. Their silence on the truth spoke louder than their pleas. I walked to the window, looking out at the city waking up, cars humming, people rushing, a world moving forward. I thought about the workshop, the women I'd meet, the stories we'd share. I'd been one of them, trapped by guilt, by family, by the need to be needed. Now I could show them another way, not with grand speeches but with practical steps. How to check a bank statement, how to say no, how to see their worth beyond what others demanded. My fingers twitched, itching to write more, to plan the sessions, to turn my pain into something that lasted. The Thompson name wasn't Mom's or Tara's anymore, it was mine, and I'd make it mean something. I sat back down, pulling my laptop closer, and opened a new document. I typed "workshop outline," my hand steady, my mind clear. I listed topics: budgeting basics, recognizing financial abuse, building self-worth. Each word felt like a brick in a new foundation, one I was laying for myself and others. I thought about the girl I was at 16, clutching that debate trophy, hoping for a glance from Mom. She'd been desperate for validation, willing to dim her light to fit their mold. That girl was still in me, but she wasn't driving anymore. I'd learned my worth wasn't in their eyes, it was in my actions, my choices, my courage to walk away. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't look. Instead, I closed my eyes, letting the quiet settle over me. I saw flashes of the last week, the confrontation, the emails, the night air as I drove away. Each moment had been a step, not toward revenge, but toward myself. I didn't need Mom's tears or Tara's apologies to feel whole. I didn't need their approval to know I was enough. The peace I felt wasn't loud or triumphant, it was soft, steady, like the light through Sarah's curtains. It was mine, and no one could take it. I opened my eyes, my gaze falling on the job offer folder. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that second interview, not as the daughter who'd failed her family, but as Eleanor Thompson, a woman who'd rebuilt herself from the ground up. I'd pitch ideas, shake hands, maybe even laugh, knowing I was enough, job or no job. The nonprofit meeting was next week, a chance to share what I'd learned, to help others find their own peace. I wasn't running from my past, I was using it, shaping it into something that mattered. As I saved the document, my shoulders relaxed, the last of the tension slipping away. I'd spent years carrying Mom and Tara, but now I was carrying myself. I didn't know if they'd ever change, if they'd ever see me as more than a means to an end. And for the first time, I didn't care. My worth wasn't theirs to define. I leaned back, the couch creaking under me, and let out a long breath. This was peace, not their approval, not their love, but mine. So what do you think? Did I reclaim my life enough, or should I have pushed harder? Have you ever had to break free from someone who held you back? Drop a comment below, share your story, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Your stories inspire me, and I know they'll inspire others too. Keep fighting for your worth. You've got this.